Today, we're going to talk about growing pains. Spoiler alert, they are not related to growing, but they certainly can mess with sleep. So, listen in to learn what you need to know if your child is experiencing growing pains and how you can help them avoid them and find some relief. Hi, I'm Allison Edgety, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. I was a very tall child, which meant I was growing a lot every year, like way above average. At one point, I wasn't even on the growth chart. One year, I grew so much, so fast, that I even got stretch marks all across my back. It really puzzled the pediatricians for a little bit until they figured out what had happened. So, when I was in elementary school and started waking during the night with terrible leg pains, the pediatrician assured my parents that they were just growing pains and this would pass. This made perfect sense because I was growing an insane amount. But when my very petite daughter, Addison, started having growing pains a few years ago, I decided to look into this a little bit more. And much to my surprise, I learned that growing pains have nothing to do with children growing. What? So, what are growing pains? And why are they called growing pains? Well, here's the deal. Growing pains were first written about some point back in the 1800s. It was starting to be noted that children were having these unexplained pains that were primarily in their legs at night and did not persist during the day. And it was basically assumed that they were related to growing because they occurred during the fastest growth period of life. In the early 1900s, they started to more formally refer to them as growing pains. And the name has just stuck even once everyone realized it wasn't related to growing. The truth is, we don't really know what causes growing pains, but there is no evidence that these pains are actually related to a child's growth. What we do know is that they are benign pains. They primarily take place in the legs, and that children do experience them during childhood. They are most often experienced in the evening or during the night, and they do not typically persist during the day. I think this is what really helps pediatricians kind of determine if it's growing pains or potentially something else. They do most often occur in children between the age of 3 and 12 years old, that really big growth window. And they do typically reoccur for a period of time. So it's not usually a one off night sort of deal. Your child will likely have them repeatedly over a period of time. So, what's actually causing the growing pains? It actually isn't totally clear what causes growing pains, but they have found some links to overuse of the muscles. So that seems to be what they're leaning towards the most is that some kids may repeatedly do an activity that over fatigues those leg muscles. If they're doing the same activity over and over, they may have exerted a lot of energy in that day leading up to when they have the struggle that night. And so it's really could be overuse of those leg muscles. And there also is a possible link to low vitamin D levels. So the next logical question is okay, what, if anything, can be done to help a child who's dealing with growing pains? We don't have great stats, but it's believed that up to 50% of kids will deal with growing pains in some way, shape, or form. But it's not really well tracked because they don't do anything about it. So, in addition to my own daughter, I've had quite a few clients whose children have dealt with growing pains, and I've worked with them on it because, of course, growing pains affect time around sleep, bedtime and middle of the night. And what I have found is the most effective treatment is ensuring that children drink enough water during the day so they're not dehydrated, especially on days where they are particularly active, and to have your child stretch before bedtime. So, we actually happened to have Addison's vitamin D levels tested when she was experiencing her growing pains. It was not related to the growing pains, it just happened to be in that window. And I did find out that she was low on vitamin D. So we supplemented her with vitamin D in that time when we did get her growing pains sorted out. So it's possible that the vitamin D helped, but it's a little hard to say because that's also the same window where we started to have her stretching at night. But it did work. So we had her stretching at night, doing some leg stretches. If you've been around following me on Instagram, I'm obsessed with stretching for myself. So I started to have her stretch at night during this period. I'm not still having her stretch every night. We had her stretch at night, and then we were supplementing with vitamin D based on what the doctors had told us to do with her blood test results. So my guess is what helped her is a combo of the two, and I've seen it help families I work with as well. So if your child is experiencing growing pains, I recommend ensuring that they aren't dehydrated and start encouraging them to stretch before bedtime. So we just came up with a simple stretching routine for Addison that we would do before she went to bed. And then consider a vitamin D supplement if your pediatrician recommends it. So I'm a big advocate of supplementing based on our actual bodies and what's happening. So you definitely want to consult with your pediatrician. And possibly if your child is in the throes of having growing pains, you might consider giving them Tylenol or ibuprofen to relieve that discomfort if that's something your pediatrician recommends. So again, I'll just note before you start supplementing with anything, I would definitely talk to your pediatrician, but absolutely start with the stretching and make sure your child is well hydrated on those days that they're particularly active. And then also just start to note what happened that day leading up to when they had those aches and pains, because you may start to see a pattern and you may find what actually triggers the quote growing pains for your child. Okay, that is my shorty episode on growing pains. If your child is experiencing growing pains, please know that they will pass. And it is very possible that something as simple as stretching before bed will help them pass very quickly. If you have a friend whose child is struggling with growing pains, please share this episode with them. And I hope you'll come back again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.